I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 24 of PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a PR practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to targeted audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global downturn in 2008 with more lessons in crisis communications. However, 12 years later, we have the corona pandemic and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Ann Thelen, owner and president of Thelen Public Relations in Johnston, Iowa. Let me tell you a little bit about Ann. Before forming Thelen Public Relations in 2013, she worked for more than a decade in the energy and utilities industry and one of the Midwest's leading integrated PR advertising agencies. Ann is a graduate of Iowa State University in trivia, Ames, Iowa, and has received numerous awards recognizing her strategic communication skills. She's involved with several professional organizations and currently serves on the board of directors for the Public Relations Society of America, the Central Iowa chapter, and the Iowa Association of Business and Industry Foundation. In 2015, she was named the region's outstanding public relations professional by Central Iowa PRSA. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you, Marty. Welcome.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to me from Iowa. So Ann, not that I stalk you, but I go online and I try and learn a little bit about, what you're up to. But one thing that's missing in all of this is, how did you get started in public relations?
Well, it was a curvy path, that's for sure. It wasn't straightforward. Out of high school and going into college, I thought that I wanted to major in business and started out in accounting. And you'll often hear people joke that PR people aren't good with numbers. Well, it wasn't my thing. I was okay at it, but it just wasn't something that I was passionate about. And then I thought about education, and again, just wasn't what I exactly wanted to do. And I got connected with an advisor at Iowa State University who really talked to me about my passions, what I like to do, my skills. And she sort of introduced me to public relations. I graduated in 1986, so I knew about public relations, if you will, I think, but I grew up in rural Iowa, and it was a little different back, I hate to say 30 years ago or so, or more, but public relations just wasn't on my radar, yet I knew some of the facets of it. So I started down that path, majoring in public relations with minors in English and psychology, and have been in love with the profession ever since.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you are, and I'm glad that you did. So Ann, I'm going to take you back in time to pre-COVID. So you have to go back at least 8 months and answer this question for me. What are some of the highlights of your pre-COVID-19 career?
Well, that's a great question. And it was kind of fun in preparation looking back on this. I've been blessed to work in a variety of sectors, business sectors. So I started out in agency PR in an agency in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then I worked for another agency here in Des Moines, also worked in magazine publishing and editing, and then an association PR before corporate PR, which then led me to form my own public relations firm. So I really think because of that diverse mixture of, PR in those different, an association versus corporate world, it can be vastly different in many ways. So I think that really prepared me to serve a diverse client base now. But along my highlights, the first day of work for Berkshire Hathaway Energy, I met Warren Buffett. So that was that was certainly interesting. I have to kind of start with that highlight. I got my picture taken with him. So Berkshire Hathaway is about 90% owned by Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway Energy is about 90% owned by Berkshire Hathaway. But right out of college, not going, go back to the beginning here, I was working at a small agency, and President Bush, the first President Bush, had a heart issue, and it was discovered that, in layman's terms, he had an irregular heartbeat. And at that agency, one of our clients was the Minneapolis Heart Institute. And for a young person out of college, it was just like a light bulb went on of how you could work, turn a national story into something local for the benefit of your client. So we were on all the major networks in Minneapolis, talking with the doctors from Minneapolis Heart Institute about what President Bush was facing. So that was intriguing. Then again, fast forwarding to Berkshire Hathaway, I was part of the team that helped start the renewable energy business for the energy company. And then it was called Mid-American Renewables, and now Berkshire Hathaway Renewables. But part of that was the first project from that group was building the world's largest solar farm in California. And what I loved about that was it brought together community relations, environmental responsibility, issues management, media relations, everything really together in one strategic package. And that was fun to see that all come to fruition, and work with the various stakeholder groups. Overall, though, just what really stands out, Marty, is the things that have to do with grassroots advocacy, reputation management, and crisis communications. Working in the utility industry for nearly 2 decades now, I've seen my share of crisis situations, from employee fatalities to EF5 tornadoes to natural gas explosions, flooding. You kind of name it. Utilities, they go through a lot. And it's an essential service. So I remember being on the site of an employee fatality with an organization I was working for. And I got there because I heard the media was going there. So I rushed to the site, and I called back to the office, and I said, can you send me the approved, media statement? I'll fill in the blanks, but I need something because I need to talk with the media. And the person online said, we don't have one. And I'm like, what do you mean we don't have one? And I was new with the company, and that just really solidified and ignited a passion for me in that whole aspect of crisis communications and reputation management. I've done training sessions in a 6-state area here on helping utilities and some other businesses develop a really comprehensive crisis communications plan. And keep those updated so they're just not books on a shelf. And then the one other thing that I'm super passionate about is that advocacy. And I work with a client now that is, it's an initiative that includes all of Iowa's commodity groups. So, here in Iowa, the heart of the Midwest, we're known for agriculture. So it's corn, soybeans, beef, dairy, turkey, pork, and did I say dairy? There's 7 of them, and eggs. But the challenge with that organization that they're really working to solve is to build trust in modern agriculture. And you'd think, we live in Iowa, we're #1 in corn and soybeans and pork and eggs and a whole host of things. Why do we need to do that? So those kind of things are, what I'm really passionate about, and helping through that initiative. We do help people understand more about modern agriculture and build that confidence.
That's great. Those are some real highlights. Thank you for sharing. So let me ask you, in terms of, now we're in COVID, what are you doing for your clients during COVID?
Well, that the crisis really, the kind of that foundation led me to start working with my clients immediately. I had one client that I worked with to develop out their crisis plan about 1.5 years ago, contact me in January, and I applaud them for that, because when people weren't thinking it was going to come here, they were ready, they were updating plans, and we've certainly learned a lot along the way. I mean, you can prepare to the best of your ability, but what we've found with COVID, I don't know if anybody was completely prepared. So a lot of that initially. And then, like a lot of other organizations and PR practitioners, we've pivoted. We've done more podcasts, more virtual learning things. But what I've really loved maybe the most out of all of it besides the crisis. I don't like a crisis. I like to help people manage their reputation in a crisis because it's really an opportunity for a brand or an organization to shine. But it's the research. We've had time to stop and slow down and talk to our stakeholders or consumers about what do they think? What do they want? And in a busy, fast-paced time where we're going so many directions, we don't always have that time to do that benchmarking research. Some of my clients do a great job at that, but others just time and resources. And sometimes it's funds. And because maybe events have been canceled, now they have those dollars to put into that research. And we've learned a lot. And I think that's helped us to make some strategic decisions. Another thing, I work with two magazines here in Iowa. I'm the editor of one and a writer for another. And I've always been, and that's what led me into public relations, was my love for writing. And I think content is still king. And, our surveys show that print isn't dead, certainly complemented by social channels. But, having the opportunity to push more content out, our readership has been stronger than ever.
So, when you say push content out, what are you talking about? So in the traditional media, because you mentioned social media, clearly that's there's been an uptick in the use of social media. But in terms of, are you also using traditional media, the newspapers, magazines, television? Is that still in your repertoire?
Yeah, and with one of my clients, a radio campaign that they probably wouldn't have done before, some more TV, pitching and such, but more magazine content. Ironically, one of my clients, the agriculture one, started a quarterly magazine about a year and a half ago, and so we've been able to do some additional targeted distribution with that people have time, to read a little bit more. And, we're seeing those readership statistics go up on, time they're spending on a page. And certainly electronic content, newsletters and social media, we've continued to amplify those platforms.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right, so Ann, we have to believe, we have to hope that we're going to turn a corner and put COVID behind us. What do you think the role of PR is going to be as we emerge from the COVID crisis?
I think, Marty, a silver lining in it may be that more public relations practitioners have a seat at that proverbial table, and they're part of the C-suite. In some organizations, the communications team doesn't have the luxury of being at the table. I mean, they're a little bit of an afterthought. In other organizations, they're there all the time, and that's the way it should be. But I've heard some organizations talking about how communications is being brought in now because they realized in COVID they have to communicate and words matter. And so I really hope that shift will happen for a lot of organizations, that they'll recognize the benefits of that strategic communications council that PR people can bring, where PR isn't just about writing news releases or posting on social media. It's really about strategically thinking. I was listening to a webinar last week where an individual was talking about just how vital it is that you have a relationship with the call center, because a lot of times those calls coming in, if you're in that kind of an organization and if PR can get engaged early, it can prevent it from going sideways. The things that PR people have finally had time for, whether that's research or other things, I hope those continue. Budgets are allocated. The other thing is, that is concerning to me is that, and I hope maybe through COVID that it can kind of shake itself out, but just the role of the media, it's so divisive on either side. And, public relations really needs the media. I've been hearing things lately about the media being spin doctors, and it wasn't that long ago, back in maybe when I was studying PR, or maybe you can remember, that public relations practitioners were called spin doctors. And really, that's not what we're about. We're about helping to reach key audiences. We're helping to manage those reputations, to get information out. So we need the media a lot of times to do that. And I hope that as we go on, that more people, those relationships can get stronger and we kind of bridge some of those gaps. Because I think that's important. A lot of times the media isn't being viewed as what I was taught in journalism school, and right or wrong. And I'm not saying anything negative about the media. It's just that, we need that in our society to thrive and be informed.
I think, Ann, there is a symbiotic relationship with the media, and frankly, I'm finding in my little neck of the world, we have a daily newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm spending a lot of time talking to reporters, not about my clients, but I'm actually talking to them and helping them find stories.
Yeah.
Not necessarily COVID stories. Yes, everything has that COVID link to it, but
Right.
there are so many other things happening concurrently. When we start talking about the whole issue of racial injustice, that would have been, if we didn't have COVID and we just had that would have been a crisis.
Right.
So we have these things going concurrently, and I think people are looking to PR to help get the word out. So
Right.
I share your view.
Yeah. And newsrooms are short-staffed. I mean, that's going to be the real crisis of COVID in our small communities, and media outlets they're not going to be able to afford to maintain full staffs. And we're already seeing restaurants and businesses, shuttered, and that's unfortunate. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding, and there are those incredible stories out there that, those reporters, if there used to be 5 on staff and there's 2, or 20 and others 10. They need that help. And I think that we can all do a good job in public relations of sharing those human interests or new product launches or innovative things. I hope that we all continue to innovate after COVID, because we've certainly had our boundaries tested, and that who would have ever thought, like, some of my clients are doing annual meetings online. They would have not thought of that. I mean, if they would have, ran. It's like, we've got to be in person. And while people are zoomed out a little bit, perhaps, it's been really neat to see kind of that innovative spirit and entrepreneurial spirit come alive.
I agree. Thank you, Ann Thelen, owner and president of Thelen Public Relations in Johnston, Iowa, for being on the show.
Thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure.
All right. I also want to thank Rich Mellinson at BCTV for helping to edit the show. Rachel Cohn, my daughter, who's a professor at Ball State in art. She's helping me with her technical assistance on the podcast. And also for Twin Musicom for the music Hat to Jazz that you hear at the beginning and end of the show. I'm Marty Cohn in Vermont. Stay healthy.